Hey everybody, I'm Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse, and we're doing a new character build. Here we go. When I was building characters for the original playtest document, the most powerful character that I built was in the Weather Control power set. The Weather Control power set was large, it had a lot of interesting things in it, it felt thematic, and it was exciting to build, and it turned out that that was one of my more powerful characters. But then the core rulebook came out, and I was shocked to see what had happened to Weather Control. The Weather Control power set now has exactly 8 powers in it. That's it, 8. And it actually very much relies on another power set just to be functional, as we are going to see. So what happened here? It was gutted, and now it is this crippled shell of what it used to be, and it's no longer really exciting to look at. Not only that, but as I said, in order for it to be a functional power set, it absolutely relies on you being in the energy control power set. So today, we have to look at weather control really as just something that augments energy control. Here's what I mean by this. The heart of what remains of control weather is the control weather powers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which actually change the environment in which you are fighting. And control weather 3 and 4 grant you the ability to use a power that is normally an action as a reaction. For instance, control weather 3 says that you can use the elemental blast power as a reaction when you are attacked. Now, Elemental Blast is not in the Weather Control power set. It's in the Control Energy power set, meaning in order for you to actually use this power, you have to be in another power set. And a lot of Control Weather is ribbon features or things that are just not going to be anything scarier than a rank 1 problem, frankly. So I want to explore this. I want to take a look at the control weather powers and build around them and see if what is left is really functional, or have they gutted this thing to the point of it really needing a complete overhaul yet again. That is what we're going to find out. But one good side of what remains of the Weather Control power set is that we gain Control Weather 3 and Control Weather 4 which are going to augment different powers from the control energy. And specifically, they're going to allow us to build a character that is either going to be able to do single target damage or multi-target damage. So we're going to do a first for our character builds here today. We're going to build a character and analyze its capacity for single target damage as opposed to multi-target damage. And we're going to see how it stacks up in each of these scenarios, because the weather control power set allows us to pick and choose which one we want to do. Again, I'm not that great at naming my characters, so if you have a name, I'd love to hear it, throw it into the comments, but for the moment, I'll be calling this character Tsunami. Let's go ahead and do our occupation, and I think let's go ahead and take Outsider. This just seems fun and flavorful, and there's ways of mixing this in with the character concept that are going to thematically work. But for an outsider, we come from another time or another dimension or another planet in some way, and we are an outsider to this world. But this does give us a few traits. Specifically, we get connections for outsiders, fresh eyes, and stranger. Connections for outsiders is one of the multiple connections traits, which I am a big fan of. As you know, they allow you to have connections in the world and NPCs that you know that help you along the way with your quests. It's just great. Fresh Eyes gives us an edge on logic checks when we're faced with doing something for the first time. This is not a character that's going to bump logic at all, and so this is going to be a helpful thing for us as we go along, just making this character a little bit more functional in the logic department. Stranger means that we do not understand local customs and we have trouble on any check when we attempt to pass ourselves off as a local. So even though this is going to be a very high ego character, he or she is not going to be good at trying to blend in. And I think that that just is fun, honestly. Our origin is going to be eternal. We are one of the Eternals, but I would argue this character doesn't know it yet. About midway through the character's career, we are going to learn this secret about ourselves. It's going to be a great story moment for us to build towards, and you'll know the moment when we get there in the build that this character learns that he or she is an Eternal. So this is going to give us some really interesting roleplay opportunity as Eternals try to correct excesses or deviations and to protect other Celestials. There's no trait that comes along with this, but I think it fits with where this character is going. Let's go ahead and do point buy, and this is a character that is going to operate from range, and I'm just not worried about melee, so I'm gonna actually go all the way and take a -4 in melee. I don't want to even think about melee score on this character. That's going to give us the ability to get a 3 resilience, 2 vigilance, and a 4 ego, and all of the powers we're going to take that are going to be attacking powers are going to be ego on this character. There's really no point in going into the weather control power set at rank 1. All we could take is like the thunder power, which is going to deafen enemies, but it's really not going to help us win a fight. So we're going to go into our other major power set, which is elemental control. I'm realizing I said it wrong earlier. It's elemental control, not energy control. I wonder how many times I got that wrong. We're going to start by shoring up some defenses right away. And so we're going to take the SAD powers, the single attribute dependent powers that we want right away. We're going to take wisdom and we're going to take evasion. Wisdom is going to allow us to use our ego defense against logic attacks, and evasion is going to allow us to use our agility defense against melee attacks. And as a result, we're going to have some really good defenses. Specifically, we're going to get defenses of 10 for melee and agility, 13 for resilience, 12 for vigilance, 14 for ego and logic. Throughout this character's career, we're going to be bumping agility as well, and so we're going to end up with really good defense scores pretty much across the board. Next, we're going to take Discipline 1, which gives us a 1 damage multiplier for all of our attacks using ego, and a +1 to all checks that are non-attack rolls. So all of the persuasion or deception checks that you're going to do as an ego character, you're going to get an additional benefit on top of, which is awesome. Our damaging power is going to be Elemental Burst. This is a ranged attack, and it is within 10 spaces, and we have to have a line of sight to the enemy. And upon a success, they take regular damage. Upon a fantastic success, they take double damage, and they suffer our elemental type's special effect. But what is our elemental type? The weather control power set specifically tells us that our elemental type has to be electricity. Basically, we're striking people with lightning. When we get to use our elemental type special effect, we stun an enemy for 1 round. So there is some battlefield control built into this character from the beginning. We just don't get to decide when it happens, but it is going to happen, which is pretty cool. The trait we're going to take is Battle Ready, and this gives us an additional 30 points of focus, which is going to be really useful because we will be burning focus at higher levels of gameplay, so we might as well get this kind of under our belts right now. At the moment, we can only attack a single target with an elemental burst, and if we do so, then we are going to do, on average, 12 points of damage. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 2. We are going to bring agility to a 2, resilience to a 4, vigilance to a 3, and ego to a 5. We are now going to have defenses of 12 for melee and agility, 14 for resilience, 13 for vigilance, and 15 for ego and logic. So some nice defenses all the way around, which will continue through the character's career. Now is the point when we can go into the weather control power set. And we need to do this at this point because the heart and soul of the weather control power set is the control weather powers, which are different than other numbered powers. For things like mighty or discipline, you can get the first level at rank 1, the second level at rank 2, so forth and so on. This is not true of the control weather powers. Control weather 1 has a rank requirement of 2. Control weather 2 has a rank requirement of 3, so forth and so on. But this means we do get to take control weather 1. We create a rainstorm that is up to 5 miles across per our rank. So this is a 10-mile storm, pretty cool. All ranges are cut in half. which is going to be really interesting. If you wanted to, you could stand at a distance and shut down ranged enemies, which is pretty neat. Movement is not yet affected, but it will be very shortly for us. Next, we're going to take Elemental Blast. This is one of those powers that allows us to expend focus and then do half that value as damage when we hit with an attack. But please remember, there are rules for how much focus you can spend on a power in a given turn. You get to spend 5 points of focus per each rank you have obtained when you are using any power in the game. So right now we can spend 10 points of focus to add 5 damage to an attack that we make. On a regular success, the enemy takes regular damage. Upon a fantastic success, they take double damage, including the focus that we spent, and they're going to be stunned for 1 round. So notice there's more battlefield control coming into play. We are stunning enemies, we are reducing the range of attacks, but that does include our own attacks. So if we have control weather up, this power is usable within 5 spaces rather than 10 spaces. So you do need to think about how you want to position yourself when playing this character. Next, we're going to take Discipline 2. This is going to give us a 2 damage multiplier that we can use for any of our attacks that use Ego, which is going to be all attacks that we make, which is great. Next, we're going to take Elemental Barrier. Now, this is really a prerequisite for other stuff we want to take, but it is a defensive ability of ours and does allow us to protect our allies. It costs 5 points of focus, and it is an action to use, not a reaction, which is why it's a prerequisite for other cool things. Here's the way that it works. We create an elemental barrier that is 2 spaces across per each rank we have obtained, and we get to then protect our allies inside of it. If there is an enemy that would be inside of the barrier we draw, we make an agility check against their agility defense. If we succeed the check, they are shunted outside of the barrier. If we fail, they get to choose, basically, but they're probably going to choose to be inside the barrier and be able to attack us in all likelihood. Anyone who attacks the barrier is attacking our Ego defense, and it has only 10 points of health before it is destroyed. But this can absolutely absorb an attack and save somebody's life. The trait we're going to take is going to be Signature Attack for Elemental Blast. We're going to get a lot of mileage out of Elemental Blast, so I want an edge every single time that I use this attack. During a round of combat, we're going to use Elemental Blast with an edge. We are still a single target damage dealing combatant, and we have no reactions to spend. But we are going to spend the maximum amount of focus, which for us right now is 10 points, and add 5 damage to the attack. When we pull that off, we're going to do 26 points of damage per round. Let's do point buy for rank 3. We're going to bring Agility to a 4, Resilience to a 5, Vigilance to a 4, Ego to a 6. We now have defenses of 14 for melee, agility, and vigilance, a 15 for resilience, and 16s for the mental stats, ego and logic. We are not going into a new power set. We're going to take 5 powers, and we're going to start with Discipline 3. Discipline 3 is going to give us a 3 damage multiplier for all attacks using ego. Next, we are going to take Control Weather 2. The storm is now 5 miles across per each rank we have obtained, so it's a 15-mile storm, and all ranges and all speeds are halved, which is going to be pretty cool. So there's more of this battlefield control coming into play with this character. Those ranged combatants, they're going to have to get closer, but that does include us, and then speeds are halved, so hopefully you have some melee combatants who just want to get in there and hit people, and the enemies are not going to be able to run away effectively. Next, we're going to take Elemental Protection 1. We are going to be building a character quite by accident that is essentially unkillable, and this is the first real step in that process. Elemental Protection 1 costs 5 points of focus. We can use an action or a reaction. The reaction is just triggered if we are in danger. That's it. Someone can attack us, or we can just feel like we are in danger. And that's a pretty open-ended trigger. Anyway, we create an elemental barrier that surrounds just us, but it's going to absorb the next hit and has 10 points of health. Any attack against it is against our ego defense, and any amount of damage does not carry through. It would just destroy the barrier. So this will absolutely save your life, and I have seen it save people's lives. Next, we're going to take Elemental Reinforcement. Now, this is a little bit of a tricky power, so let's get into it. It is a reaction that is triggered when damage gets through an elemental power. So if we have some sort of elemental power that is up, that is supposed to protect us, and damage would get through it, we can use our reaction, and then we are going to have that damage hit our focus instead of our health. So this gives us some form of a brace for impact way of surviving an attack, but only if that damage would bypass some form of an elemental defensive power. Anyway, this is going to help save your life, and since we have a good amount of focus and a lot of hit points, your character is not going down anytime soon. But all of this talk about making a character essentially unkillable is just there to lead up to the point where the character is unkillable. I cannot believe I have never taken elemental form on a character on this channel before, but we're doing it now. Elemental form is a permanent alteration to the way your character actually physically is and appears in the world. You are now made out of electricity. Specifically, this power says, and I'm quoting here, that you are essentially unkillable. You are able to get back to 1 health just given enough time, though the amount of time is not specified. And once you are at 1 health, even if you are dispersed as a form, you can reform. Your character is now almost godlike. And so when we took the origin of being an eternal character and we didn't know it yet, this is the moment. Right here is the moment that we burst to life as an elemental character and we understand that we are eternal. Notice a couple things going on, by the way. The first is that this doesn't feel like a weather control character very much. That's just because there aren't a lot of powers in the weather control power set. We're forced to take a bunch of stuff inside of the elemental control power set just to be functional. And if we're here, we might as well snag up the defensive abilities of the elemental protection and the immortality that comes with elemental form. We are going to be controlling weather. We just only have a few powers to take, and we're going to attempt to take at least one of them early. The other thing is that this character is not strictly a damage dealer. The weather control powers are all about managing the action economy of enemies. We're able to stun enemies with regularity, and we're tanking now that we're unkillable, and we can throw up protective barriers. So while I'm building this character for damage, this character can actually do a lot of different things, which is pretty exciting. The trait we're going to take is combat reflexes. So if you're playing the drinking game at home, now's the time to take a drink. This is going to give us 1 additional reaction that we can use per round of combat. Right now, this is entirely defensive. We're going to be able to use elemental protection or elemental reinforcement in order to make sure that we are defending ourselves or our allies, but we cannot use our reaction offensively yet. So we are still only a single target damage dealer with no reactions. We're going to use Elemental Blast. We're going to spend 15 points of focus because we round down, so doing 15 would just be a waste of a point of focus. We're going to do 14, and that adds a flat 7 damage. When we pull that off, we will be able to do 37 points of damage on our turn. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 4. We're going to bring our agility to a 5, resilience and vigilance to a 6, and ego to a 7. This is going to give us defenses of 15 for melee and agility, 16 for resilience and vigilance, and 17 for ego and logic. So really good defense scores, the ability to throw up protective barriers, and did I mention you can't kill us? This is a character that is incredibly tanky. The first power we're going to take is Discipline 4 for a 4 damage multiplier for all of our ego attacks, which is most welcome. Next, we're going to take Elemental Barrage. Now this costs 15 points of focus, but we pick a point, and then any enemy within 10 spaces of that point, we are going to be able to attack. We make an ego check against the resilience defense of all of these enemies. Upon a success, they each take half damage. Upon a fantastic success, they take full damage, and they are going to take our elemental's special effect, which of course is stunning them for 1 round. As if this character wasn't difficult enough to kill already, we are going to take Healing Factor. Healing Factor is going to allow us to heal our resilience value every single round of combat. And so between being an eternal character, healing every single round, having protection abilities, and having good defense scores, this is a character that is going to survive any meat grinder you throw it into. Next, we're going to take Control Weather 3. We are going to create a storm that is 5 miles across per character rank, and inside of that area, all ranges and all speeds are cut in half. Also, we get to use Elemental Blast as a reaction when we are attacked. We just have to have our storm up and active. So now all of those reactions we have accumulated, we're going to be able to use to just start blasting people, which is fun. Next, we're going to take Control Weather 4. This is going to create a storm where all ranges and all speeds are cut in half, but we also get to use the Elemental Barrage power as a reaction when we are attacked. Control Weather 4, by the way, has a rank prerequisite of being rank 5, so we have to take the trait Surprising Power in order to pick this up. Surprising Power says that we can bypass the rank requirement of any power we choose, but we must meet all of the other prerequisites. The only other prerequisite is Control Weather 3, which we have already taken. And now we have a choice. Do we want to be a single target damage dealer, or do we want to be a multi-target damage dealer? We could do either one, and so we're going to calculate for both. If we want to be a single target damage dealer, we are going to set up Control Weather 3 on the first round of combat. After that, we get to use Elemental Blast as a reaction when attacked. That's the wording. By the way, notice that Elemental Blast says that we can use Elemental Blast as a reaction when attacked. It does not say we must attack the character or creature that attacked us. So if we want to hit one target and a minion hits us, we get to use Elemental Blast as a reaction against the main target. You have flexibility here. But assuming that we are going single target, we're going to use Elemental Blast as our action and 2 reactions for Elemental Blast, and this will do 147 damage per round. If we want to be a multi-target damage dealer, we would set up Control Weather 4, and then we would use Elemental Barrage, and then 2 more Elemental Barrages as our reactions on these rounds. We assume for multi-target damage dealing abilities that we're hitting 3 valid targets. And assuming that, and assuming we get to do 3 elemental barrages, we're going to do 174 damage per round. Let's take this character to rank 5. We're going to bring agility to a 6, resilience to an 8, vigilance to a 7, and ego to an 8. This is going to give us defenses of melee and agility 16, resilience 18, vigilance 17, and 18 for ego and logic. We're going to start adding a little bit more just robustness to the character's capacities, starting at rank 5, and we're going to be going into a new power set, but first let's take Flight 1. Flight 1 tells us that we have a flying speed that is equal to our rank times our run speed, but our run speed has improved. Every 5 points of agility, you add an additional 1 space or 5 feet of movement. So our running speed as an average sized character is 30 feet, not 25, which means our in-combat flight speed is 150 feet per round of combat, and outside of combat, it's 3 times faster. This is helpful if we have a Control Weather up, which reduces our flying speed in half. So you're going to have way more mobility than most of your enemies, and that is incredibly helpful since you are crippling their mobility. We're going into the martial arts power set for a couple interesting things. The first one's going to be Do This All Day, which allows you as an action to regain health in exchange for focus on a 2-for-1 discount. Always nice on a character that basically we want to have survive literally anything. Then we're going to take Brace for Impact. If your elemental reinforcement would not apply to an attack coming in, you can use Brace for Impact and a reaction in order for that to damage focus rather than health. Then we're going to take Defense Stance. Now, I do not intend on actually using this because we're taking it as a prerequisite for other stuff, but if you use an action to go into your defense stance, then all attacks incoming have trouble until the first one actually lands. The trait we're going to take is a signature attack for Elemental Barrage, and this means that every time we do an Elemental Barrage attack, when we're doing a multi-target round of combat, we're going to have an edge on all of those attacks. Speaking of combat, if we are going after single target damage, we're going to put up Control Weather 3 and then do 3 Elemental Blasts. 1 is an action, 2 is a reaction on our turn. If we pull all of that off, we're going to do 168 damage per round. If we're going multi-target, it's going to be Control Weather 4 and then 3 Elemental Barrages with an edge now, and that's going to average out to 198 damage per round. Let's finish off this character at rank 6. We're going to bring our agility to a 7, resilience to a 9, vigilance to an 8, and ego to a 9. This is going to give us defenses of 17 for melee and agility, 18 for vigilance, and 19 for everything else. First, we're going to take Unflappable Poise. Now, this is a pretty great power because it does not take an action for you to get. It is a permanent augmentation of your character, but all close attacks against you have trouble. If you're in defense stance, they have double trouble, which is nice. But we took that so that we could get Regain Focus. Now, this is an action on your turn, but you're able to use an action in order to recover focus equal to your vigilance. And you can do this every round of combat or every 5 seconds outside of combat if you want to. So now you have a character with healing factor and regain focus. So this character just doesn't run out of health or focus. If they're hit, they can have multiple ways of shunting that damage to either health or focus, and if they are somehow killed, well, they're immortal and they just get to reform. We're going to go ahead and take Flight 2, which means outside of combat, we can fly 50 times our flight speed. Next, we're going to take Elemental Sphere. This is elemental protection, but it allows us to protect our allies. We create an area that is 5 spaces per each rank we have obtained, and we protect our allies within that sphere. Any attacks against the sphere are made against our ego defense, and it has hit points equal to what our elemental protection hit points would be, which is only 10. We've never bumped elemental protection. Any attack against it that would destroy it will destroy it, but extra damage does not carry over. In other words, this will protect the entire group against any one single hit, independent of how big. Next, we're going to take Elemental Prison. This is a pretty cool power, and I have seen it shut down combat encounters. We pick a point, and around that point in area 5 spaces times our rank in size, we can envelop enemies in a prison of our element, which is of course lightning. Here's what's cool. We make an ego check against the agility defense of our enemies. If we succeed, they are trapped inside of this prison and they have to literally hammer their own way out in order to be able to continue attacking us. But this is an ego check, not an attack roll, which means it interacts with the additional rider of the discipline powers. Remember, the discipline powers say that for a non-attack roll, you get a bump. For us, it's a +4 to all ego checks. We've been using this for persuasion or intimidation or things like that. But now you get to roll basically an ego attack and add 4 on top of that. This is compared to the agility defense of your enemies. I have seen this lock up an entire group of enemies, and then the heroes get to come in and kill them one by one. It's an incredibly efficient way of controlling the battlefield. The trait we're going to take is Honest. We get an edge anytime we're persuading people and telling the truth, but we have trouble on any check where we are lying. And I have seen this trait used to incredible effect on high ego characters. It's really, really fun to play with. Let's talk about damage. If we are doing the single target variant of this character, we're going to do on average with Weather Control 3 already up 192 points of damage per round. If we are doing the multi-target damage variant of this character, once we have Weather Control 4 up, we are going to do an average of 216 damage per round, and that is assuming 3 valid targets as always. Let's talk about this character. If we take a look at just damage and look at the single target damage, this character does an average of 97 points of damage per round of combat, and that is average across all 6 ranks. And remember, we have to use our first action just to get the control weather power up, assuming it's not up already when we go into combat. 97 is very low on my single target builds. The only thing lower was the bodybuilder, when I assumed the bodybuilder was attacking only a single target. And that means this character is below the wisecracker, it's below the fast blade, it's below the sniper. This character is not doing crazy damage. What about multi-target? Multi-target is more difficult to think about because this character doesn't even have a multi-target attack until the rank of 4. Very, very late in the career of this character. And since we don't have the ability to use reactions until we have rank 4, the amount of damage per round for multi-target build averages out to 110.5. That puts this character dead last on my multi-target build as well, below the artist even, who when I built the artist, I thought was going to be the single worst damage dealer that I was going to build. I just wasn't impressed by the martial arts power set by itself. But this character comes in even lower. There's a lot more to this character than damage. When I build some characters, they are all about damage, like the sniper. But this character is way more. First of all, there's battlefield control. Lightning stuns enemies. Control weather is going to affect movement and affect ranges. I didn't even mention, but the high level of control weather powers makes flight impossible, so shuts down flying. We are going to be able to control that space really effectively, and at very high rank, we get elemental prison to be able to trap enemies. So the actual capacity of this character, by just the sheer fact of being in the weather control power set to manage the battlefield, is actually pretty great. It makes me want to build another version of this character that's just focused around battlefield control. And then there is the tankiness. This character has huge hit points, really good focus, and has the ability to start regaining health and focus, and is also immortal. Now, if you take this character down to 0 and disperse the form, they're not going to reform in the same battle. So I don't want to think about that as something I'm relying on. But this character is incredibly tanky, an amazing battlefield controller, and does okay damage all at the same time. So this may be my most well-rounded character that I've built. Normally I build a character that's going to accomplish one singular goal, and I achieve it usually pretty well. But in this case, I was building for damage, but because weather control is so small of a power set, because it is just so minuscule, I had to find other stuff to take. That's why I went into martial arts. And if I'm going and just finding other stuff, I might as well explore the elemental control power set. And while exploring it, I found there's cool stuff I want to take in here. If you are looking for a character build, or at least a power set or power sets that are going to give you flexibility in your character, the combination of weather control and elemental control is actually great. All right, so that's the build for the week. I hope that you enjoyed it. YouTube's made out of buttons. Press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.